I've got all of my jacket pieces out, and these four are going to be the body pieces. Basically they're finished, except that they need to have seam allowance added to them and a hem, and the hem works just the same as the seam allowance. You just touch it at a different time and give it a different number. So before I start making adjustments, I want to make sure that I have merged anything that I want merged. Modify, line, combine. So I want to make sure that the end points of my lines are the end of the line. I don't have them in between. Except for this one I'm going to leave because I'm going to turn those into notches. And I'll probably do the same with some of those, so I'm going to wait on those. Okay, so I'm going to modify, set, rotate my front facing onto my body. I'm imagining that all of my body pieces are out of wool and they're essentially finished. I could add a little bit extra to this so that the facing doesn't come rolling out. I think I'll do that. Create, offset uneven. We're coming out uneven from there, and that's going to be 0, and this one is going to be, if it's a heavy wool, I'm going to use 0.25. If it's something lightweight, I probably won't do that much. So my grain line still needs to stay the same, but this extra amount is going to stay out so that the facing doesn't roll outside and peek out. So we have the top part of the facing with the extra, but the bottom part of the jacket with the extra. And I didn't save it. Do you remember how I told you we had to save it? Okay, I'll come back and do that later. So I'm going to put this one back on top. I want it to go exactly in the corner. And cancel. Okay, so I want to separate the other side of this piece. And it might be easier to go back to my map. And trace it off of my map. And I can still do that. Unfortunately, this got saved in here. But this line hasn't changed, so I'm going to trace off that little piece. And I'm looking at this being part of the lining now. Okay. So this is part of my front lining, but that's a really odd shape to have for lining. I've got some options. Sometimes you just want a little bit of extra in your lining. But those I need to work with for lining. These are finished. This one, if I convert all 4 of those to notches before I combine them, they'll all line up. So I'm just going to add them before I forget. And then modify, combine the lines. clockwise and in order. But I'm going to leave that one split, and I'll do that one again. Create, offset, uneven, 0, and 0.25. Say OK, apply, and OK. So now I can swap that. Modify line, swap, but I'm going to leave the line there so that I don't accidentally do it over again, and then when I'm all finished I will delete them just before I put on seam allowance. So those two are finished. Those two are finished. This piece can just be lining, regular. I could save that as lining, just the way that it is. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to create piece, copy this one, and I'm just going to call it my lining. I was just making sure in my head that that was true. Lining. So this one is going to come over with these. This one, I kind of want to do something with this one. I can't actually put it totally together because I've got this flared out here. But since I don't really care about the grain, I could. So I might do that. And because I'm going to be changing this one, I'm going to copy that one too. So I'm going to copy, I guess it's these two that I need to copy, but they're going to change. Create piece, copy. No, I'm not going to do that one because it'll be easier to do the other one. Create piece, copy. I get ahead of myself a lot. I just get way too excited. Okay, so lining, and this one's the body, and this one's the body. But before I take it apart and turn this one into lining, I need to make my back neck facing to match this one. So I'm going to set rotate this piece over there with that one. And that's lined up correctly, so I've got my front neck and my back neck together, and I want to create a lining that's the same width. When you're making a lining, sometimes I could move this over here so that it's the same, but if I do that, I'm going to have multiple layers of seams all in the same place. So I'm going to leave it here, but you could move it over here if you wanted to. I could widen that, which would mean I would need to change. No, I wouldn't need to change anything over there, but I'm going to leave it the way that it is. And when you're deciding how far down your back lining comes in your back neck facing, you also want to think about hanger appeal. So if this is going to be on the hanger, if you work at a more expensive company, then you're going to have that back facing come down lower and probably put a pretty label on it or something. So it depends. I don't like the way that feels though. I'm going to create offset even this line until it comes out and lines up with that one. And I could make it that long, but in honor of hanger appeal, how far down would I have to come for hanger appeal? If that was sitting, on the hanger from the shoulder, if I didn't want the lining to show, I would need to come clear down into here in order to not have that show. So I'm just going to put that little mark right there. So that's quite a bit. I don't think I would come down that far. Sometimes you'll see them come down just a little bit further so they can put a nice label on it. And you could put that in there. I like the way well, those are almost identical. So I'm going to clip while that's right there. Modify, line, clip. I want this line until it runs in to this line. And then I want this line until it runs into that one. So now I actually have a perfect lineup because I joined it right there connected to this. Oh, and I should have left that. So if you want to bring that down a little bit further, you can. Just make sure that this lines up nicely. And these two pieces are both going to match. So this would be our velvet, and then this down here is going to become lining. So I'm going to just, did I copy that piece? No. So I'm going to create trace, this one, so that's my back neck facing. And this one is going to be my center back lining. But you can probably tell already it's going to require a little bit of change. Okay, but I only need that much of it. Okay, so this can go back to being just my back, and I can delete that line. Modify, delete, line. Am I going to wish I left it there? We'll wait a while. Okay, so I've got my two facing pieces, my map, my sleeve, my collar, my lining, and my body. And other than adding notches, that looks good. But I've said that, haven't I? Okay, so what we're left with here with the lining, when you move your arms around, the center back of the lining often will get torn, or maybe not the center back, but parts of the lining. And so it's customary to extend this out an inch, so you have this inch tuck, and you can go look at inside of a jacket. Usually there's a little tuck right here that you don't even notice. So I'm going to create a 2-point line that is vertical, and then I'm going to modify, split the line, distance from point, 1 inch. Okay, so I can delete the rest of it. And then I'm going to create a 2-point line that comes right here. And when I switch this, I'm going to put a notch right there. So I'm just going to put it there in the corner so it stays. So that will be my lining, but I want to make a little change right here before I change the grain on the lining. So I'm going to leave this one alone, and I want to cut that little bit off right there and add it to this piece, because that's just weird. That way my seams aren't all going to be on top of each other. Modify, set rotate. This one is holding still, and this one is moving to it. Cancel. Now you could probably get away without doing this. That looks like it's kind of at an angle. I almost want to rotate that around a little bit more. So I actually appear to be adding a tiny bit right there. That might be a 1/16 of an inch. What if I rotate that piece? Modify, rotate, choose this piece. We're rotating around that point. If I don't really want to cut off right there. I'd rather have extra room in the lining to move around with. I overlapped it maybe a 32nd of an inch, but okay. Let's see what we're doing at this end. When I make decisions like this, I like to know what's happening. So, did I not line it up exactly correct? I do need to straighten out that line though. So when I'm finished with this, I'm going to use that new line. And this is the lining, remember, so if I make some changes to it, it's okay. It'll be on the inside. Okay. So if I cut this little piece off of this piece and add it to this one, that's not going to hurt anything, and it's going to be easier to sew together. You don't always see that, but I just want you to see the thought process involved in creating a lining and making it easy to sew. If you want to skip this step, it isn't going to hurt anything. You can just cut out this piece and this. You do have to add that though. Just cut out all of those pieces and sew them together. So if you don't want to see the rest of that part, you can fast forward to get past it. So I want this line on this piece as well. So I'm going to create, copy this line, say OK, put it on this piece, cancel. You have to wait till it appears before you cancel. Okay, so now I can split and swap. I want this line and this line to replace this line and this line. And that looks fantastic. And I want, oh, I haven't split this one yet though. I kind of want to fix that with a 2-point curve. Create 2-point curve. No. And then I'll split that one. Okay, and clip. So I want to keep this line until it touches this one, and that looks good. Modify line swap, clockwise in order. These two for these two. So I added this and took it away from that, which means I can sew those two pieces together easily with this extension so that it moves around. And I want to walk. I'm going to combine some lines. I guess those aren't matching, so it's okay. Modify, combine, clockwise and in order. And clockwise and in order on this piece is different. Okay. So if I come back to verify walk pieces, up in the top, verify, over to check walk pieces. This one can be the stationary piece. That's the direction I want to go. Right click, choose the piece that's moving, change direction. I knew it was in the wrong place because I couldn't see it. And say OK. And that's not quite perfect, but it's really close. So do I want to cut it off at the hem? Do I want to ease it in? I kind of think I want to ease it in through here. But you know, that's probably that same little bit right there. this one's long and this one's short. No, I lengthened that one. And yet this one's still long. Okay, I'm going to stop it right there and put in a notch. And in theory, the notches should just add themselves right here, but I must be doing something wrong, so we need to look that up. Create notch. I'm going to just add it to both pieces in the same place. Well, I'm further off than I am at the hem. So I guess I'm moving this one. There. Now they match. So I'm going to walk them again and add another notch further down. But because of the shape of the curve right there, if I wanted to leave it alone and just let this piece ease in, I could walk it from the opposite direction. So, verify walk pieces. This one is holding still. I'm going to change direction. Say OK, choose. Oh, did I choose that one? I did. This one, change direction, say OK. So that is really not off very much. So I want to put another notch right about here. And I'm going to set them down right there because I think I can get them both. But I started here, so this can be the same. And I'm just going to put it on that piece, and then I'm going to switch to the other one. So this is my side back lining. Side. Front. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in really tight. If you want to measure, you can measure. Okay. So I'm going to flip that one back over. Modify, realign, piece. Oh yeah. Hate when I do that. Clear all. Alright, I'm going to swap those two for this one. Modify, line, swap. Clockwise in order for the center back. And now that's going to be a tuck, and it will be twice that wide. So I need to change my grain. This piece is going to be on the fold now. If you're short on fabric, you could put a seam there, but you don't need one. So do I have a handy straight line? No. Create rectangle. Modify, set, rotate. See, you're all getting good at this now. You don't need me in your head anymore. I mean, I'm sure there are questions, but so now I'm going to change the grain. Modify, realign. This time I'm going to realign the grain so that it's going with the center of the piece. And I can leave that there so I know it's a fold line. I eventually need to get rid of that. And I can write that it's on the fold, but if I were doing this actually on the computer to be cut, I would need to mirror that. And because this tuck is being taken out, it's okay to leave that, but I probably would draw a straight line across the bottom. And then swap that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to undo both. So this is now on the fold. And if I want to, I could even put a little arrow on each end, but I'm not going to. I'm going to edit the other annotation. And I'm just going to put it inside the piece. So you're not going to want to watch it on the video, but you're going to go through and label all of these body, all of these lining. This one we don't need, and that one's going to be trim or velvet, and so is this, and so is the collar. When I start playing with lining options that go beyond this, please feel free to fast forward, because beyond this is not part of the homework assignment. Just double speed and don't worry about it, or switch to the next one. Okay, realign piece. So I have them separated by fabric on the screen, but I still need to make a top collar for that. The grain's a little weird, but when you sew it back together, it will come out pretty normal. That one. Now what are we going to do with this? You've got several options. The simplest is to just create a leave it as a separate piece and add seam allowance and sew it together. But that's not what you're going to see in your more expensive clothing. So I'm not going to get it to set rotate. So I'm going to zoom in really tight and line those two up exactly. Okay. And then I'm going to rotate this piece until it bumps into that one. Modify, piece rotate. Rotating that one. But yes, I'm still going clockwise. Point to rotate around. Reference point. I'm going to zoom in as tight as I can. I guess I'm not. Okay, so I can just set it down right there and hope that they're actually overlapping a little bit. Oh, there they are. They are. Okay, so I could cut this as one piece and sew a dart in right there. Or I can get a little tricky. I won't mind if there's a little ease on the lining right there. Let's see what happens. Create line. So if I draw a line from here to here and another one right here, we're just experimenting. This is the thought process. Create piece trace. I don't always do it the same way. It depends on the price point. So I'm going to and I'm going to give it a throwaway name. And okay. Well, now that might have been an interesting thing to do. Let's go back and do that first. What happens if oh, that's not a dart. Modify, rotate piece, this one. Point to rotate around. Reference point. Okay. That side works really well. This one I'm going to move first. Modify, rotate. That one's going to be counterclockwise. This piece we're rotating. Choose the point to rotate around. And I'm going to rotate that one again. So that looks a little crazy right there. And it's spread apart more here and overlapped a bit more there. And if I blend that, then I want to look at what it's going to be like to have this piece sew to that. And I'm not convinced this is a better option. But some companies are really picky about how their linings are. So they might try this and then possibly revise it. And like I said, you don't have to follow me down this road. And I was holding and sliding right there, so I got the whole piece. And because I'm missing some right there, I've got extra, I can miss a little bit right there. But I don't want to make it smaller. So I might go ahead back and make that a little bit wider. Okay, so I have my first option that's simple, and I could do something like this and treat this as a dart. And that is a mess. But I did get the whole outline. We're going to cancel that, and I'm going to split a couple of things. Doesn't that overlap somewhere? Yes. Okay. Okay, I got it that time. So you eventually create lining pieces that are standard that come together like that. And I might not leave it that way. Should we walk it and see? Modify line, combine. Clockwise and in order. That would definitely need some notches. But it's more likely that at some point this would scoot over further and they would share the dart on either side. Verify walk pieces. Stationary piece. Okay. Other piece. Change direction. Okay. So my notches started to line up, but that one's off. So this piece is actually too short. And we lost it right through there. But that's not a surprise. Okay, enough of thrill and amazement. But you often see two separate pieces where the darting has been adjusted so that the front only has one lining piece instead of the two. Even if they put it together, cut it as one piece, and sew a dart in both this area and that area. But sewing in a dart costs more, which is why you might see the dart in an Ann Taylor. This will still be connected, and this would be a lower price point, but still fairly expensive. But they wouldn't leave it like that. But if I add too much more to that, then this is going to get to be too big and start peeking out. This would also be a fun place to add a pocket in behind. But we can have a separate pocket conversation. While these are on the screen like this, I'm just going to line them back up and trace this off as though I were sewing a dart there. And I want this to be an actual dart, so I think right there looks good, and right there. I don't want to lose that much though, so I'm going to shorten it. There. Yeah, that's better. So now I can trace that off as a dart. And I should probably do the same thing right When they start getting really close together, sometimes it can be kind of tricky. Maybe I will do that after I trace it off. See what happens. Modify line clip. I want to keep this one until it intersects with this one, and I don't want that one at all. Well, I want to keep this one until it intersects with this one. There we go. So that looks a lot better. If this still matches the front, I'd leave it alone because sewing that together is going to change that part of the grain. So this one, where did it go? Would sew to this one, and it actually does match. It's just a little off. The grain's a little off, but I would leave it because I want my side seam to stay the same. And I might blend that in a little bit, but it is going to change direction. And if you add too much right there, the lining is going to peek down below the hem. So those are 3 ways of finishing it. Or the thought process to get there, and we can just keep those. I'm going to save them in my model just because, but you don't need to. So we just need to finish up the collars and do some cleaning.